HT on the edge of a desk and on the hard set of a woman's jaw. Emma Collins stood there with her arms folded, the silhouette of someone who had crossed too many lines to be timid now. Her suit was the same neutral gray as always, but tonight the suit felt like armor. Across from her, Mr. Harrison sat like a man who had been carved from marble and then chipped by the years, precise in his tailoring, but shaken in a way that didn't suit his chair. He looked at Emma as if trying to reconcile two images: the hesitant young manager who had walked into his office weeks ago, and the woman who now held an entire company's future in her hand. "You're late," he said, the kind of small complaint that tries to hide larger defeats. Emma didn't smile. "I was busy calming a department you tried to break," she said. "They called me. The board called me. I came because either you step down, or the board will do it for you." Harrison's face tightened. "You think you can walk into my office and tell me how to run my company?" "It's not about running it your way," Emma replied. "It's about saving it. You've been running it into the ground with your fear and your secret deals and your decisions that favor power over people. The board asked me to lead the restructure. You can step aside, or you can make them make you." He inhaled slowly. "They asked you because they are desperate. They don't know what they're doing. And yet they asked the one person they still trust," she shot back. Her voice held a cool anger that was not performance, it was reality. Someone who had been pushed, and pushed back. "You sidelined the people who kept this company honest. You signed memos without consulting the only managers who raised red flags. You lied to investors. You told us the market required sacrifices, and then you sacrificed our people." "That's unfair," Harrison said. "I made decisions for the long term. I had to protect the company from risk." "You protected your position," Emma corrected. "There's a difference. You abandoned the very culture that built your so-called long-term." She let the words land. They hit like a stone in calm water, but the ripples would not stop. He set his hand flat on the desk. "You sound like everyone who thinks the world owes them moral clarity." "I sound like the person who stayed when it was hard," she answered, heat rising. "I sound like the person who watched you take credit and watched my team get punished for facts you didn't want known. I sound like the person you used to be proud of until power simplified you." Harrison's jaw worked. He had not expected to be indicted this plainly. He had expected backhanded politicking, boardroom pressure, the ceremonial shaming of a disgruntled manager. Not this, not the quiet list of failures recited like a verdict. "You're a child," he said finally, the word more of a reflex than a condemnation. "You don't understand the calculus. People want stability. They don't want noisy integrity." Emma stepped forward until she was close enough to see the tiny scar at the corner of his mouth, the kind that betrayed time and hard decisions. "And you don't remember what it felt like to be young and hungry," she replied. "You don't remember your first day in the filing room, or the man who actually taught you how to deal with clients, or the interns who stayed after hours because they believed in something you sold them. You sold them a dream, not the empire you sit on now." The room tightened up around them, as if the furniture itself were listening. Harrison's face flushed. "You have no right." "I have every right," she interrupted, fury burning now like a belligerent flare. "You signed away raises. You closed teams. You fired someone who exposed a fiscal misreporting. Because it would have made your bonuses look bad. You transferred people who asked for transparency. Do you even know what loyalty looks like anymore? Or did you put it up for auction?" He slammed his palm on his desk. The sound was red-faced, but hollow. "You have an imagination for demonizing me. You have a pattern," she said, and this time she let herself look him in the face without apology. "You used to tell stories about sacrifice for the company. You used to say men who didn't hurt others couldn't rise. You used to think power came from lifting others, not crushing them. Somewhere along the way, you forgot the difference." Harrison's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You think you're above the law. Above tough decisions. You think decisions are tough when they're done honestly," she said. "They become cowardice when they're made to maintain an image." He rose then, the older man's bulk and age combining into an infuriating presence. "You will not stand here and dictate terms. You will not belittle the people who built this place. You have been given too much. You forget your place." Emma's fingers curled into a fist. She didn't swing. She rarely needed to. "What I forget is what you tried to make me forget: courage." Her voice went low, every syllable a controlled punch. "You never liked people who asked questions. You liked people who answered to you. The moment dragged. Harrison's face changed, pride, then anger, then the thin thread of fear. For a man who had crucified rivals with memos, the threat of being replaced stirred a real panic. You want to take over? He asked. You want to lead the boardroom into the market? Yes, she said. I want to rebuild the company we promised to our people. I want to reopen closed accounts, fix the misreports, ensure those we pushed aside are recognized, and restructure bonuses to reward contribution instead of brown-nosing. It will be messy. It will cost you, your reputation, maybe your seat, but it will be right. He laughed, a sound that held surprise and scorn. You speak as if the board will hand you the keys on a silver platter. They'll test you. They'll interrogate your plans. He reached for a folder, as if to puppet proof of her naivete. My plan is already on their desks, Emma said. You think I didn't prepare? You left paper trails. You forgot that people who care about the company kept copies. The board saw the memos, the transfers, the emails. You underestimated loyalty to truth. He looked away then. Pride slumped into something lonelier. You think you know everything. You think you can fix everything. I didn't say I could fix everything, she answered. I said I could try. I said I can be honest. That's a start. Silence fell like evening itself. In the corridor outside, footsteps came and went, lower-level managers watching through glass, waiting to see whether the old guard would break. The company had become a small, human drama observed by the whole building. After a long time, Harrison sank back into his chair. He rubbed his forehead. You are dangerous, Emma, he said, but there was less venom than tired resignation. Not because you're a threat to me, because you remind people this company could be better. Exactly, she said. Not a threat to you. A threat to everything that's corrupt. And you can either be part of the fix, or part of what broke it. His hands were on the desk now, shaking slightly. He had always been decisive. Now he felt indecisive in bones he had long trusted. The years of ruthless choices had left him with fewer allies, thinner justifications. I don't want to be humiliated, he said, in a small voice, as if the confession were new and dignified. You won't be humiliated by truth, she said. You will be judged by it. That's different. Harrison's gaze held hers for a long beat. The old arrogance flickered and then was gone, replaced by a tired, small man who had forgotten how to be human. He looked at the resignation letters still folded in the drawer, the petitions with signatures from the people who had built the company. He thought of the board's calls, the investors' terse emails, the way the market had sniffed instability and recoiled. He thought of his late wife's photograph on his desk and how she used to scold him for being cold. Memory is a strange, relentless teacher. Finally, he nodded. If this is what the board wants, if it's what the people need, I will step down. Emma felt no surge of triumph. A brief, sharp emptiness cut through her, the echo of the years of hard work, now validated by a man's surrender. Do it with dignity, she said. Say what you need to say. Don't make it worse. He looked at her then, really looked, and something in his eyes broke. I am sorry for what I've done, he said before he could swallow it back. The apology spilled out honest and raw. The office seemed to hold its breath. For what? Emma asked, her thunder still near the surface. For the arrogance, he said. For the times I chose my comfort over people. For the promotions I gave myself without merit. For making you feel small when you were brave. He swallowed. I am sorry. Those words, simple, human, landed heavier than the most ornate speech. Emma felt warmth and a hollow ache all at once. She had made him cracked. She did not want to crush him further. Apology accepted, she said finally. Her voice had no warmth, but no cruelty either. But actions matter more than words, Mr. Harrison. Leave the company in a way that helps it heal. He nodded. I will prepare a letter. I will tell the board. I'll make a statement. The next days were a storm. The board convened a special session that felt like both a legal proceeding and a funeral. Emma presented her restructuring plan in the same room where she had once been scolded for asking questions. She laid out steps, appointed teams, and outlined accountability measures with a clarity that was both ruthless and kind. She named names when necessary, but she also named solutions. Across the hall, Harrison wrote and rewrote his resignation letter. He walked the halls like a man who was leaving not just a job but an identity. He went to the teams he had cut and tried, clumsily, to apologize. Some accepted his words. Some walked away. On the day of the public announcement, the boardroom was full. Reporters, clients, staff, and cameras filled the space like a press of two worlds. Emma stood at the podium, calm but fierce. She had chosen not to speak first. The board asked Harrison to say a few words before the announcement. He stood, the room bending slightly with his presence. He read from a sheet of paper. The statement was not defiant, it was small, human, and full of regret. He spoke of mistakes and the cost of unchecked pride. He admitted that he had prioritized reputation over people at times and that his choices had caused pain. He accepted the board's decision and announced his resignation effective immediately. When he finished, the room was silent in a way that made Emma's skin prickle. Cameras flashed. Some people clapped politely. Others looked stunned. Then Emma stepped forward. She could have unleashed a torrent. She could have used every word she had in reserve to narrate his failings. Instead she chose something sharper, clarity without vengeance. She thanked the staff. She outlined immediate steps, transparent audits, reopened internal grievance channels, a review board that included employee representatives. She announced concrete reassessments of bonuses and a pledge to restore careers wronged by arbitrary transfers. You deserved better leadership, she told the room. You deserved honesty. We will repair this together. When the cameras panned to Harrison, he was not weeping. He was not triumphant. He stood like a man newly stripped of a crown he had overpolished. He looked at Emma, and in his eyes there was a strange, grateful thing. A few months passed and the company smelled different, not brand new, but like a room opened after being closed for a while. People who had quit were offered positions back with adjusted roles. Those who had been overlooked were recognized. The audits found inconsistencies and the fiscal wrongs were corrected, with restitution offered where possible. The market wavered and then slowly steadied as clients felt the renewed honesty. Harrison stayed long enough to oversee a dignified exit. He made his statement of apology public in a memo and then in a broadcast that was awkward but sincere. Some pundits questioned whether it was performative. Some employees said it wasn't enough. But for Emma, the public gesture mattered less than the changes that followed. One evening, months after the confrontation, Emma found Harrison in the small kitchen on the executive floor, pouring himself an instant coffee with more ritual than eagerness. You didn't have to stay for the meeting, she said, leaning against the counter. He looked up. There were lines of age around his eyes that tenderness had not smoothed. I wanted to see what would happen. I wanted to make sure it wasn't chaos. He smiled like an apology. And because I wanted to tell you, properly, that you were right. There was a long beat. Emma had a strange impulse to laugh, to say, I told you so, but she didn't. Pride was not the point. The point was the work. You were brave, he said. And I was, not. I can't take back the years, Emma. But I can try to be better about the rest of my days. You already are, she said. You admitted it publicly. That's rare. He nodded. I thought I had to be all things to everyone. I was wrong. Emma looked at him, feeling the residue of anger and the newer residue of something like pity. Be careful, she told him softly. Pride comes easy in quiet rooms. Humility comes from being seen by those you hurt. He looked at her with a long, hungry gratitude, like a man seeing a map he had long ignored. Thank you. She left the kitchen and walked to the floor where her team waited. The office hummed. People were working but laughing too, a sound that had been scarce during Harrison's last year. They had been bruised, but not broken. Emma thought of the resignation letters she had once dropped on his desk, of the fury she had felt like a living thing, and of the quiet that followed. She had wanted more than a fall, she had wanted change. In the quiet days that followed, she built it, not a reversal so much as a reformation. She hired a new ethic officer, created a transparent promotion policy, and established a weekly open forum where anyone could raise concerns without fear. She learned that anger is useful because it speaks truth, but that it must be joined to action to make things better. The company healed, imperfectly and precisely. Harrison published a short book about leadership in his later years. It read like someone learning to admit mistakes. He dedicated a chapter to Emma, not as a penitent tribute but as recognition of the spark a new generation brings to old institutions. At the book launch, Harrison spoke in a voice that had softened like paper left in rain. He spoke of failure, of the arrogance of certainty, and of the people who had held the company's conscience when he had not. Emma listened from the front row, a small, private smile crossing her face when he mentioned the lesson she had taught him. Leadership is service, not dominion. After the event, he came to the side of the stage and offered his hand. You did good, he said, more honestly than any memo or public apology. You made it possible for me to see. I owe you that. She shook it cleanly. You gave me a chance to lead, she said. That's the part I'll take. Outside, the city lights were steady. Inside, the company table was no longer an altar for power but a place for ideas. The emergency had not been melodramatic enough to kill the company, rather, it delighted in a stubborn possibility, that people, when given truth and respect, return value in ways that no single leader can quantify. Emma walked home that night with a quiet that had nothing to do with reconciliation and everything to do with work still left undone. She had wanted victory, what she had gotten was something deeper, the beginning of a responsibility she now bore willingly. And sometimes, late at night, when she reviewed metrics or heard a junior manager state a truth boldly, she remembered the look Harrison had given her, not of defeat, but of recognition. The anger that had driven her there remained, but now it was tempered with a steady, strategic force, not fury for its own sake, but fury converted into the muscle of change. The company would always have stubborn places, bones left from earlier designs. People would still fail and sometimes hurt each other. But Emma had installed an ethic that could not be signed away by any single paper. It lived in the weekly meetings and in the faces of managers who had learned to say what they meant. In boardrooms and in small offices, truth had reclaimed a place. And on a long wooden wall where once the company's founder's portrait had presided regal and unassailable, a new plaque hung, simple, unornamented.